Now that we've created how we're going to pay for Azure and created a cozy Azure space within Microsoft Data Center, it's time to create a virtual machine. Okay, so we're back at our test resource group. Let's hit create and search for virtual machine. Hit create. Give it the name Relion test VM. It's defaulting to Ubuntu, but we're going to change that to 2022 Hotpatch edition. Hotpatch is a new technology that allows us to apply security updates without rebooting the server. Very cool new feature. We want to make sure we include that. And for the size, it's defaulting to a 16 gig virtual machine. That's a little bigger than what we want right now. So let's look at what other options are available. That's recommended by image publisher. They're all 16 gigs. So let's see all sizes. And on the top, there's a section that's called most used by Azure users, and you see the squiggly trend line. I tend to pick from there because there's literally hundreds of options here, and sometimes hard to figure out which one you should use. Stick to this list and stick with the D series. We're going to pretend D stands for default, so it's easy to remember. And look at the amount of RAM. That's really going to dictate how many virtual CPUs comes with it. So see how 8 comes with 2, 16 comes with 4. So with anything that requires any kind of decent performance, we're going to stick with 16. But for demo purposes, we're going to just pick 8. Now there's two different ones you'll see here. Just simply pick the latest version and look at the price so that we're just make sure it's not a crazy price. Here you see they're the same, but just to understand the difference, this is version 4 AMD, version 3 Intel. You can tell it's AMD by the A, and because AMD is usually slightly cheaper, it ends up being the same price as an older Intel. We're going to stick with AMD, and it wants you to create a local admin account, so we're going to create one with a password. It's asking if you want an inbound port 3389. We're going to close that once we're done with the initial setup, but we'll leave that selected for now. And in the licensing section, it says, would you like to save up to 49% if you have an existing license? We're going to say yes. I'm going to explain later on how this works. But right now, you're basically saying, yes, Microsoft, I pinky swear I really do have this license. We're not going to worry about all the other options. We're just going to accept the default. Hit review and create. Going through the validation, being a little slow right now. Validation failed. Networking. Let's see what's missing. It's selecting the VNet that we created on our previous video and the subnet. That looks correct. So why are you mad at me? Let's try one more time. That time it passed. I did not make any changes. Sometimes the Azure Resource Manager can be glitchy, so it pays to try certain things more than once. Second time it just works for some reason. We're going to hit create. And I'm going to pause the video for now and come back when this is created. Okay, we're back. You're going to notice that when you create a virtual machine, it creates 4 components. Virtual machine, public IP address, network interface, and a disk. Sometimes you can detach one of these components and reattach it to another server, but for the most part, these 4 things are going to stay together. Now let's take a look at the public IP. This address is what we're going to use for remote desktop. Hit connect. We're going to see that this is going to time out. And the reason being, the virtual machine got attached to the VNet. The VNet is protected by NSG. And recall that NSG acts kind of like a firewall. So we need to create an inbound rule for RDP. The destination is going to be the IP address of the newly created virtual machine. That's 10.200.0.4. The reason why I know it's .4 is because that's the starting range of the DHCP in the VNet. Now let's allow RDP, hit add. So when that's created, you're going to notice that there's a yellow exclamation mark here, which is Microsoft warning you that you should not have port 3389 open at all times. We're going to address that by installing ScreenConnect. So let's try connecting again. Now, if this fails again, don't worry. Any changes you make to Azure is not instant. So you do need to be a little patient and wait a minute or two at least. And let's try one more time. And hopefully this time around it should connect. Go downstairs, get yourself some coffee, go for a walk. Maybe not, don't do that. There we go. Okay, now that we're logged in, we're going to install ScreenConnect. And see that it's showing up here. Now we can disconnect from our RDP session. Close up the port. And from now on, we're only going to log in using ScreenConnect. Now, I mentioned that we're using DHCP, and that might feel wrong to those of you who have always been trained to put static IP on servers. Let's take a look at something here. You're going to notice that the DHCP server and the DNS server is provided automatically by Azure. Now, we're going to change the DNS server to something else that makes more sense once we are ready to domain join. And in order to domain join, we're going to need a site-to-site VPN. We're going to cover that in the next video. But for now, I want you to notice something. Look at the lease expiration date. It's 2159. We're going to be long dead before the lease expires on the server. So the best practice is to leave it as DHCP, because later on when we update the DNS server information, it's going to update all the servers automatically. So for now, this is all there's to review. I will see you in the next video.